Everybody, it's EK from EK Designs, and I am coming in today with count them, 6 cards to share with you for the Autoimmune Awareness Hop. This is a hop happening here on YouTube to help bring awareness about all the different autoimmune diseases and make sure that no one fights alone. I'm starting this project off with 2 die cuts from White Rose Crafts that I will be using in both or all of my projects. I've additionally pulled 6 pieces of printed paper from 6 different packs of paper. They're all purple, and they're all purple because I am trying to help bring awareness to the autoimmune disease lupus, and their ribbon color is purple, and it's often known, not only is it purple, but it's often associated with the purple butterfly. So in all of my projects, I'm playing with a bunch of different mediums, but I'm trying to use purple and butterflies or the symbolism of flying in all of my projects. I started off with my Nuvo creative pens, and actually one of the reasons I'm playing with so many different mediums to make some basic cards is because I find purple to be one of the hardest colors to blend and play with. So I thought it might be really fun if I pulled out different collections of purple mediums and create kind of basic panel backgrounds to attach to cards. I pulled the Royal Purple collection from Nuvo Creative Pens, and this one's always a kind of a tough blend for me, but when I played around with the different papers, I went with the White Rose Studio Winter Bauble paper that you can pick up from White Rose Crafts, and the very pale background kind of seemed to kind of mute and control what felt out of control with the Nuvo pens. While I wasn't absolutely in love with how the blend came out, once I stamped over it with this Kaiser Crafts stamp set, I absolutely loved how the background looked, because suddenly the black stamping grounded, in my opinion, the whole panel. I love the sentiment Make-A-Wish for. Not only do I have a community of friends with lupus, I have recently myself been diagnosed with lupus, which I'm not 100% crazy about yet. I don't think I'm ever going to be crazy about it, but I'm still very quiet about it, just because it's taken 7 years to get here. About 7 years ago, my hand started hurting, especially my right wrist, and I went through carpal tunnel, my medical team went and searched for carpal tunnel. It wasn't that, and they ran blood panels, and it wasn't that, and just basically for 7 years, I've been getting, or for 6 years, I got a whole lot of, not really certain what's going on. Well, the last 6 months, I finally found a primary care doctor, who really, really listened to me. And we started the medical investigation once again. And this time, I don't know, by luck, I was in a flare-up and my numbers were really high. But I was able to get a primary care doctor who really heard everything I was going through, which was pain in my joints, rashes all over my skin, and fatigue, and a whole assortment of weird things. I basically didn't feel good. I don't necessarily feel good. And about 2 months ago, my rheumatologist came back and my dermatologist came back with, I don't know, the unfortunate diagnosis of lupus, but yet the wonderful diagnosis that we had somewhere to go from here. We had a medical treatment to go forward. Ironically, I had a community of friends who I already knew had lupus, so I had a great resource, and one of the first things they said was, "You're going to be in pain, and a lot of people are never going to believe that because you look fine." And I think that's the thing about autoimmune diseases that's most difficult to understand. Most everybody who has an autoimmune disease inside feels awful, or they're in pain, or they're exhausted, or any number of things. But on the outside, they look perfectly normal. So they're not getting the sympathy or the empathy on the days they really need it. And when they call and cancel, they get "but we just saw you yesterday, you look fine." So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you know somebody who has an autoimmune disease, and I couldn't even begin to list all the autoimmune disease: celiac disease, hyper and hypothyroidism, type 1 diabetes, lupus, um, Sjogren's, psoriasis. I could keep rolling them off. People aren't, there's a lot of different things. So if somebody says I have an autoimmune disease, take them at face value and then ask if they need any help. Most of the time, people are pretty stubborn and will say no. Maybe I just need somebody to talk to. I'm on to my third card. I kind of just glossed over, I realized, the Distress Oxide card, but that's probably the medium people are most familiar with, and it might be the easiest to work with of all 6 mediums I'm using here. This one is a combination of my Distress Oxides and Distress Inks, and I pulled out my old Distress Marker blow pen thingy, because it really blows ink beautifully on some water cardstock. And playing around looking for the right paper, I went with this Lawn Fawn Perfectly Plaid paper, which I think made the colors really pop nicely. I really wanted to play a little bit more with this iridescent violet paper, so I just cut a little 2x2 square and adhered it on top of my card frame. Like I said, each of these cards has a similar build to it, but with all different looks. This one really utilizes that nice, strong, iridescent paper to help kind of ground the busyness of the plaid, and the craziness of the sprays. I adhered down again. I like how all 6 cards have that white intricate die cut on it, because I think the white helps ground it, and I like that everybody has a heavy black stamping on it, because between the two, it keeps them a family. I used this stamp set from Kaiser Craft that had a beautiful butterfly and a great sentiment with the "You're simply amazing." I'm trying to create these cards for actually my friends with autoimmune, and again, it's surprising how many friends you have with autoimmune when you start looking around. Just because sometimes I think people need to be picked up. Like, not a "I'm so sorry to hear bad news," just a "Hey, I'm really glad you're making it through." For this card, I pulled out my Distress crayons because they don't get nearly enough love. And one of the things I love most is it doesn't have to be water that you use to move the wet liquid. So I, in fact, used some shimmer spray, so not only did I get the crayons really nicely moved, but it's shimmery. It's all glittery and pretty without glitter falling off, so perfect. Again, I don't think this was the right combination of Distress crayons to make a pretty purple blend. So to break it up, I pulled out this stencil, and everything you see here, or basically everything you see me using here, you can pick up on White Rose Crafts. I work with the team a lot, and they are one of the sponsors of this hop, so I'm trying to play around with a bunch of cool stuff. You can't see in this piece of paper I've got here, but there's some really cool gold foil. So I pulled out my gold shimmer spray and just kind of splattered some gold on top of the Distress crayon, just to give it a little bit more feel. I really like the sentiment, and it's kind of a harder one to see, but it says, I'm reaching for it so I don't misquote it. It says, "Just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly," which I think might be the most perfect sentiment you can use with somebody who's got an illness that has no cure. And that's the thing about autoimmune diseases. They don't have a cure. They barely have a treatment plan. It's not a sexy disease in which people throw money at it. It's autoimmune is a guesswork and a patchwork, and we ruled everything else out, so I guess you have this. So many different of the autoimmune diseases have, some of them have very clear-cut parameters of, oh, this is what you have. But some of them, it's a lot harder. And it's a lot of the tests for many of these diseases is incredibly invasive. I know with Sjogren's, you gotta do a full lip biopsy, which everybody's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, they're taking a biopsy, and anytime you use the word biopsy, that becomes scary. So I think when you find out you have an autoimmune disease, be it celiac type 1, Sjogren's, lupus, Crohn's disease, I can just keep naming autoimmune diseases. You transform from what you think might be broken into something very, very strong and something very, very beautiful like a butterfly. For card 5, I pulled out my distress inks mainly because I don't give them enough love, but I love using them. They're so different than the oxides, and I love how easy the oxides go on watercolor paper. But there's something still so bright and vivid and beautiful about your distress inks, so I really thought I'm just going to play with them. And I know I've pulled out the picked raspberry here, which is not a purple, it's a pink, but I like when you work the seedless raspberry into seedless preserves into the picked raspberry, it feels purple in the end. I again pulled out a stencil. I was going to spray water on it, but I might have messed this stencil up a long time ago. So instead, I used my baby wipe. And actually, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. That's not a baby wipe. That, in fact, is a wet ones because I can't find my baby wipes, and I can find my hand sanitizing antibacterial wet ones. So yeah, I'm crafting with a wet one today. It's amazing how you can just use whatever you need to get the job done. I really like how this very bright and bold panel looked on the 13 Art Aquaflora paper. I like that the paper, it really is a true purple. So it all seems to ground itself really, really nicely. And I like the stone stencil work here. It looks like, to me, the image inside of a butterfly's wings. I added this really fun sentiment. All you have to do is fly. It's that simple. Glued on the die cut piece. Sorry it's taking so long to get it on and hold it down. Pulled out my Wink of Stella. Oh, yeah, no, I didn't pull out the Wink of Stella yet. I pulled out the Pink Champagne Nouveau Glitter Drops. Now I'm pulling out the Wink of Stella in violet and coloring in those butterflies just to give it one more pop of purple and to ground that picked raspberry just a little bit into the card. I like how this one came out. I think the vividness of the color is a very cheerful card. Finally, I pulled out my Copic markers, and little did I know this V15 was dry and needs some help. If you don't make backgrounds regularly with Copic markers, you may fail to realize it goes through an ugly stage. And that's where we are right now, is this really ugly, ugly stage. But once you start blending it out and you start working in the cardstock, it goes from being truly ugly to something that might just be a little pretty. As I was working the colors, I didn't really know where I was going with this panel. I just knew I was playing with the colors. And suddenly, about here, I realized I had a galaxy. I had an entire galaxy on my piece of paper, so I really blended out the whole card with my blender pen. And then went in and added stars back into this galaxy I'd created out of purple Copics. And I really found what was ugly, and it was truly, genuinely an ugly panel, became maybe my favorite of the day. I trimmed it up onto this fancy pants. Ironically, this piece of purple paper is a Halloween pack of paper. I literally went through all my fun different packs of paper from White Rose Crafts and found the best purple papers I could, and the Halloween one seemed quite appropriate. I liked it. I backed this pretty panel with the iridescent paper just to give it a little bit more of that cosmic feel, especially since the Spellbound paper is probably the most mundane. I adhered on the die cut. I'm struggling with the word die cut tonight. It's really fun. There we go. And I pulled out a really oldie but goodie stamp set, and actually White Rose Crafts still has a handful of these from when they first launched their company. So if you found you don't have this oldie but goodie Tim Holtz stamp, you can still pick it up, and at a really good price. But I added it and love the way these butterflies are soaring into the, the galaxy back there. I added just a few of these steel blue gems and called that one done. And like I said, I think this one is hands down my favorite card today. You'll have to let me know in the comments below which of these 6 cards is your favorite, as well as which medium you find most difficult to blend, especially in the purple color range. I hope you're enjoying the autoimmune hop today, and I hope if you know someone and love someone who has an autoimmune disease, maybe it helps you see a little bit differently what their world looks like. Thanks for tuning in today, and happy crafting.